This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Welcome to this latest episode of the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. This is episode 6, I believe. My name is Tom, and joining me today we have Rob, fresh back from a relaxing holiday in Rome, of all places. Rob, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going really nice. I managed to get a good tan. I saw loads of ancient buildings, ruins, art. It was all good.
The Coliseum.
Saw the Coliseum, yeah. I went in the Coliseum. It was super.
Fantastic. Also joining me is, as you just heard, Gaz, aka Lost Ruin.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening, Gaz. And our international arm, all the way from upstate New York, Caleb. How's it going?
It is going well.
I think it's safe to say the British have taken back this podcast.
Yeah, we did have a bit of an insurrection last week, so we've taken back control.
I've had it explained to me, and, fish and chips are great.
Fish and chips are great.
God save the Queen, all that.
Yes. The podcast is now back in Limeyville.
Caleb, have you ever had a warm pint of bitter?
I've had beer that's been left out.
Okay,
oh, no.
It's not the same, but
no.
They tried to bring that over here, where people are doing like fancy stuff where you're supposed to drink it warm, and people still put it in frosted mugs. So it might be lost on Americans. I'm not sure. Yeah,
I think you need a certain type of refined Englishness to enjoy a nice warm pint of flat
a nice
bitter.
refined palate. Yes. Lovely.
Rob, one thing I wanted to ask you was, in Rome, does it have the track from Hydro Thunder going past the Coliseum?
No. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It's just literally stuffed with so many tourists. It's just ridiculous.
I wasn't sure if that was real or not based on fact. I just thought I'd ask.
I don't think that ever existed.
Oh.
Well, we're glad you set the record straight. Thanks for that.
Yeah, cheers, Rob. Roving reporter, Rob.
Such a shame.
That's right.
As is the norm on the DreamPod, guys, what have you been playing? I'm going to ask Caleb.
I've been messing around with a couple things. I kind of got off my Castlevania kick, and so now I'm just kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to get into next. I've been going through some Dreamcast stuff. Very disappointed to find out that the second Berserk game wasn't released on the Dreamcast. There's only the one. Just pretty much trying to find another genre to get into at this point.
Cool. What about you, Rob? I know you've been on a holiday, but is there anything you've been playing?
Yeah, there's
apart from gladiators in the Coliseum.
I've been fighting lions the whole week. No, obviously no Dreamcast for the last week because I've been away, but I did take with me my Neo Geo Pocket Color, which is sort of now my default traveling companion. And I took with me a number of games, but the game I ended up playing most of, I ended up replaying Facile. Have any of you heard of it?
Yes.
No, I've not.
Okay, well, Facile's it's probably one of the rarest games I own actually because I have the UK edition.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
Which come, the Neo Geo Pocket Color in the UK, they come in like miniaturized clamshells, which were scaled down versions of the Neo Geo AES boxes that the carts came in, and they're really lovely.
Yeah.
The Facile is an interesting title because it was another of these games. It was released, I think it was literally 2 weeks before SNK pulled all of its stock and went bankrupt. So there was only like 10,000 UK units of this game got to market. Before they pulled all the rest of them off the shelves. And I happen to have one of them, and it's an absolutely fabulous game. How can I describe it? It's like it's an old-fashioned, top-down, isometric, turn-based strategy game. It's basically, imagine it's like Mech Warrior, essentially, but turn-based.
Yeah.
So you have to buy a mech, you buy its weapons, you buy its ammunition, you buy its armor, you buy loads of you need to buy a CPU for it. You have to program the CPU with various movement chips and weapon chips. So when it comes around
for a small game like that, especially on a small system, it is impressive.
I'm really intrigued by this. I mean, obviously the Neo Geo Pocket Color was connectable to the Dreamcast, so it's very relevant. I mean, I've got a Neo Geo Pocket. It's not the colour one; it's the original black and white one. And I've got a couple of games like Neo Turf Masters, etc. But this one sounds very, very interesting, very unique.
It's one of those games that I think it's because you could collect Millennium Fight. I forget what that's called on the Pocket Color. I have it. Millennium Fight 2000 or something. You could connect literally between the Neo Geo and the Dreamcast. The Pocket Color, and I don't know what you could transfer. I think you could transfer data or characters, or something you transfer with a link cable. But yeah, I don't know. The only other game of note that I took with me is Sonic Pocket Adventure, which I've got to say, I think I may have said this before, but I definitely put that in the top 5 at least Sonic games ever made.
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that one. Certain people who I know who are big Sonic fans say that is probably the best handheld Sonic game available.
I would agree with them. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. What about you guys? Have you been playing anything recently?
Well, what I did find, remember that DC boot disc you gave me? And I lost it. I found it.
Oh, excellent.
Brilliant. Yeah, so I put it in my Dreamcast, and it works a treat. And I've tested my Biohazard Code running Japanese version. I've gotten it all loads up okay, so that's kind of cool.
Ooh, do you have the red case one? That's like the fancy one?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got it from a guy who lives in Japan. An English guy lives in Japan. He's on a Facebook friends, and yeah, £8 it cost me posted from Japan, so I was really happy about that. Yeah, so that's cool. So I just need to get some import games now, play on them. So any suggestions are welcome. Other than that, Destiny on the Xbox One.
As ever.
Been playing that with Lee and Carl from Retro Collect. That's pretty much it. I've been buying games, but I've not actually. I've added to my Final Fantasy collection as well. So,
I've been playing on the Dreamcast. I recently acquired a copy of a game called Nippon Olympics 2000, which is actually International Track and Field from Konami, but the Japanese version.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was like, how in Japan sometimes they have different versions of the official games for an event. So, for example, the World Cup game that came out for the Sega Saturn wasn't the same as the World Cup game that we got in the West because EA Sports didn't have the rights to it or something in Japan. So they brought out Sega Worldwide Soccer with a World Cup license in Japan. I assumed that it was this game, this Nippon Olympics 2000, was basically the official Olympics game, like an alternative version that we didn't get over here in the UK and the rest of the world. But I'm not entirely sure if it is, to be honest, because there's no real, apart from on the packaging, there's no real mention of the Olympics itself in the game. It's literally just track and field, but with a different title screen. So that's one Dreamcast game I've been playing. Another Dreamcast game I've been playing a lot of is Rush 2049. I recently rediscovered how good that game is.
Ah, yes, we saw your challenge on the Facebook page to beat your score.
I love it. Yeah, it's not just the straight racing I really love. It's everything about the game, like the little stunt modes and the way you can, when you're in a race, it actually feels like you're in a race, even though the AI is not that advanced. When you're in the midst of a pack, like going around a corner, you might smash somebody into a wall and then they blow up and then you go and win the race, or somebody might overtake you at the final corner and then crash as you go around the corner. So you can just nip round them and take the pole, take the winner's flag. It's such a great game. I love Rush 2049. So those are really the only ones I've been playing on the Dreamcast. Apart from that, I've been playing quite a bit of Drive Club on the PS4. I love that game, regardless of what people say about it. I think it's amazing. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to back you up on that. Yeah, I picked that up cheap. It was like 16 quid or something new, and I've not got like a driving wheel or anything. I'm just using the standard controller, and it's just fun. I don't know why people are having so much of a go about it. Maybe it's
that's the thing. I mean, I've heard terrible things about it. I mean, is it just a PS4 release?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's by no means a terrible game. In fact, I absolutely love it. It's so good. I mean, it has got a bit of a learning curve. And this isn't a PS4 podcast, by the way, if you're listening and thinking, what are they talking about? But I think Drive Club is such a good game. I love it. Once you get the handling down, it's brilliant. And one other game I've been playing, again, not a Dreamcast game, but is Extreme G3, the GameCube. I've actually been playing it on my Wii because I can't find the cable, the plug for the GameCube.
Isn't that like a speedy motorcycle kind of racing game, isn't it? Yeah, that one. Yeah.
I always thought it was sort of like a direct competitor to Wipeout.
Yeah, it's very similar to Wipeout, but you're on like sort of Tron-type bikes.
Yeah.
Incredible speed, amazing tracks, great graphics. Absolutely love it. I wish they'd do like an update, like a HD remake or something for the new consoles, because that would just be stunning.
Yeah, the game, I'd say, just in terms of those, I don't want another Wipeout or Extreme G. I want a new F-Zero. That's what I want.
Oh yeah, that would be absolutely amazing as well. Yeah, certainly on the Wii U, that would basically make me want to buy one, because at the moment,
it would. Yeah, it's one of those games that would help sell it. But...
Yeah. Anyway, guys, we've spoken enough about other consoles. PS4. This is not a PS4 podcast. This is a Dreamcast podcast.
Repeat.
Don't worry, folks. Yes, don't worry, folks. We're heading back now to Sega
exactly,
Land.
Yeah. We're all gamers essentially, but we love the Dreamcast. So anyway, the first thing I wanted to talk about is a subject that we touched on the Dreamcast Junkyard site this week or last week. If you're listening to this 3 months in the future, then it's not last week; it's a few months ago.
3 months ago.
But it's a thing called the Sega Spud Dive. Now, you didn't hear that wrong. That's actually what it was called. I didn't actually know that this thing ever existed, up until this week. I'm just going to go around now, guys. Have you ever heard of this, the Sega Spud Dive?
The Spud Dive. Is that what you said? Dive, as in D-I-V-E. Really? I'm going to say no.
Okay, any you guys, Caleb?
Before today, I'd never heard about it, and now I did a quick Google search, and boy, I'm disgusted.
What about you, Rob? Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I had heard of this before, and I'd seen some images, but I hadn't got the level of information that you wrote about on the Junkyard over the past week. I'm amazed. Yeah, reading up your post and getting the full story on it, I think it's the most ridiculous, amateurish, like the writings on the wall, PR stunt I've ever seen. Sorry, I'll stop talking. I'll let you continue, Tom.
No worries. Basically, I only discovered this because I was moving some things around in my games room, and I happened to pick up a copy of Dreamcast magazine that I've not actually really flicked through yet, because I got a couple off eBay last week. And I picked it up and I opened it, and it fell open on this particular page. And right in the bottom corner of one of the pages, there's a tiny little article about the Sega Spud Dive. And I looked at it, and I was like, what the hell is that? I've never heard of that before. So I went onto Google and did a bit of a search, and there's very little information about it. But from what I could gather, I created this article on the Junkyard. So I'm getting ahead of myself. What I'm talking about here is a PR stunt by Sega. That the initial Sega Spud Dive happened in 1998, November, around the time that the Japanese Dreamcast launched.
I'm just looking at the images now.
Yeah. So the Dreamcast was about to launch in Japan, and Sega of America they knew that there was a bit of a buzz coming, in the United States, that this console was coming out in Japan. So because it was kind of around the Thanksgiving time, they decided that they would create this competition whereby they would get members of the public to jump into a vat of mashed potatoes to collect the letters that made up the word Sega Dreamcast in an attempt to win a American launch Dreamcast, which was at that time a year in the future. So they arranged this thing where they had this big vat of mashed potatoes, cold mashed potatoes, and then they would get a couple of members of the public who were just maybe milling around. But bear in mind, this is on a Monday morning at around 10 o'clock. So people are at work, there's not going to be that many people around, and it just seems like the worst idea ever, to drum up some publicity for the Dreamcast launching in another country, around the time of Thanksgiving. So that's stage one of the Spud Dive. A guy from I can't remember where he was from. A guy called Daniel Aguilar won the competition, and then, true to word, Sega gave him a a launch model Dreamcast at the US launch in September 1999. So the guy had to wait pretty much the best part of a year to get his prize. But he also got like £1,000 and a lot of Dreamcast games. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that sounds like a great idea. It sounds just a bit of fun. Getting some people to jump into some mashed potato. What's the problem? Basically, what Sega did was in 2000, 2 years later, basically, they tried to... They reran this competition in the same place, but they got a professional public relations company to run it. And it was basically around the time that the PS2 was about to launch. And so they thought that rerunning this competition with people jumping into big vats of mashed potato would take some of the hype away from the PS2 launch. They also had some actors milling around who were sort of impersonating George W. Bush and Al Gore, because around that time it was the presidential elections or the run-up to. And so they tried to put that spin on it as well. And it just seems like the most random, pointless PR stunt I can imagine. Rather than putting all of the money that they must have spent on this into like a massive advertising campaign, they basically reran the Spud Dive from 1998 in 2000 to try and take some of the PlayStation 2's thunder. To me, it sounds ridiculous. Guys, what do you think?
It looks ridiculous, to be fair.
It is ridiculous. It just reminds me of I don't know. The PS2 is like an entire army of massive tanks, and it's like Sega's just putting like some new 16-year-old private out in front of them and going, "Yes, go on, off you go on, you take them down. I'm sure it'll be fine." It's ridiculous. Like, I don't know how they thought this would be good use of the admittedly small funds they had left at the time, specifically in 2000, to rerun a competition that 1 years old they've done before. And with the first one, you mentioned that it was dragged out. The chap had to wait a year. There's no sort of direct impact of what they've done. They've run it, and then everyone's going to forget what it was ever about. You know what I mean? It loses all of its impact. So to do it again and to do such a slapdash job of it is just crazy, really.
I think the best part for me is the fact that Peter Moore was actually the guy who gave the winner his Dreamcast, like the launch Dreamcast. And then, would he have still been in charge in 2000, Peter Moore? Or had he left by then? If he was still in charge, I should know this, but if he was still in charge, that is just such a slap in the face because, running a competition at the same time the PS2 is launching like that, and then running away to Microsoft is just unforgivable. What are you doing?
What era was this? Like, I don't get it. Like, this is like something that was like they would do in like the 60s or the 70s. Yeah. Like, this is like just the most clueless marketing people ever. It's just, obviously it didn't. Boy, I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no clue. It's like
imagine some sort of like Village Fate running something like this, to drum up money, I don't know, or to win a prize hamper, full of picnic food or something. But really, for a console, when your back's against the wall and you've got the juggernaut of Sony literally about to descend on you with the PS2, which will go on to be the biggest selling console of all time. And they couldn't have known that at the time, but they knew how much of a serious player Sony suddenly was after the success of the PS1. So people jumping into mashed potatoes going to work for the third time, or what? Is it the third time or the second?
The second time. Sorry, yeah.
Well, it didn't really work the first time round, did it? So God knows which was the brainy person who decided, we'll do it again.
I love this choice quote. The client, Sega of America, had expressed some hesitation in doing this event, given we showed that if done properly, this event could be successful. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. I think, Rob, you hit the nail on the head when you said, is this like a Village Fate? And when you actually realise that, no, it's a company that's basically fighting for its life in the biggest hardware and software market on the planet. Let's get people to jump into mashed potatoes.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, they could probably only afford a pair of goggles, a swimming hat, a big tub, and a load of potatoes anyway. So
I don't know if there's something lost in translation here. in Japan, these sort of getting people to do outrageous feats on like game shows and for publicity stunts.
Now them shows are funny. They're hilarious.
No, this is like the old school American garbage. Like I said, this is like stuff they used to do, I don't know, in the 70s or something. Like, you know, they would set up these booths. But again, like, I'm not quite sure if this is the same thing you're talking about. This is the kind of things that they would do if, like, they're opening a supermarket. Or if they're, like, doing something incredibly local. Like, because they stop doing stuff like this on the national level because it's kind of dumb and it doesn't actually work to promote anything.
It's very along the lines of it's a knockout, isn't it? Let's just humiliate people into to possibly winning something.
From a professional point of view, I think it cheapens the brand as well. Like, I'm not a PR guy, but I've spoken to a lot of PR people, and I don't know, if you want to promote your system up against the PS2, you know, this is going to be a technical juggernaut, and you want to say, look, our system's super advanced, it's got these amazing graphics, it looks great, it's got all these games, it's got all these accessories, and this is sort of the next-gen console you want, or, you know, we really need you to buy now so we can compete with Sony. And what do? They humiliate people, and it's just people covered in mashed potato.
Here's another quote from the company that ran the second event. It says, as the holiday season approached, both the gaming and consumer media were focused on Sony PS2. Sega's objectives were to generate coverage for Sega Dreamcast, to reinforce the Sega brand, and send the message that consumers would do anything to get their hands on Sega Dreamcast. The wise alternative to the expensive, hard-to-find PS2. This coverage would increase consumers' intent to purchase during the fourth quarter. It's worth bearing in mind that mere months later, the Dreamcast was discontinued, and all support was pulled. Anyway, so that's basically a lesson in how not to promote your system against something as not awe-inspiring but just world-destroying as the PS2.
Is that so you say 2 months later, so is that literally the last PR stunt or event that say the Sega run for the Dreamcast? That's how they bow out, with people covered in mashed potatoes.
It's interesting just because it's so like unwell known, and I think hopefully with this sort of segment of the podcast, people will look into it and just make their own judgment.
Yeah, exactly. There's an article on the website, folks. Go and check it out and see for yourselves. It's crazy.
Right, okay, guys. I think we've spoken enough about the Spud Dive. Hopefully, we'll never speak about it again.
Yes, I'm going to plan one for Play Expo.
That'd be great.
It's going to be at the Junkyard's booth at the Play Expo. Yeah. They've got people have got to come along, and they've got to jump in the mashed potato and get out the letters for the Dreamcast Junkyard.
Yeah, and then you win a second-hand yellowed Dreamcast. Brilliant.
Speaking of yellowed Dreamcast, I don't know if any of you guys saw the article I put up on the Junkyard.
I did.
Regarding
the
whitening.
Super.
That was really. It came about because I saw Adam. Friend of the Junkyard, Adam Korolick's video on using a particular type of like hair serum that you can get in the US, which has a certain volume of peroxide per volume, I suppose. Yeah. I looked for a UK alternative and couldn't find the one that he used in his video, but found something similar. It's called Russell Jerome E-Blonde, some 12% peroxide cream.
Do you know, I'm pretty certain I've used that on my hair when I've gone through my blonde stage.
Well, you know it well then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a couple of bottles of that, and I wasn't really expecting great results, but I washed a Dreamcast shell down and put some of this stuff on it, wrapped it in cling film to stop it from going hard, and just left it in the sun for a couple of hours, about 3 or 4 hours. And the results were absolutely amazing. The Dreamcast that I did it on is now absolutely bone white. I've heard people commenting and saying that it can make the plastic brittle. I don't know how true that is, to be honest.
3 hours? I mean, that's if you leave it on like overnight or like over a series of days. 3 hours, I don't think would be long enough to make it brittle enough to matter.
The integrity of the shell that I did the first coat on is still exactly as it was when, before I put the stuff on. I don't know if people are talking about in the future, like in months or years.
I think you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, some people have also said that the yellowing can return, like in a few in a few weeks or a few months. But to be honest, if it does, then I'll just redo it. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's worked great, and I've used it on. I mean, all my other Dreamcasts weren't particularly yellow anyway because they've been like really looked after well. So I did it anyway.
I've got one that is, so I might.
It's
give it
worth.
a go.
I mean, that NES that you gave me, Gaz. I'm tempted to try it on that to see sort of how it works on a really yellowed system. Obviously, people listening to this, if you go to the Dreamcast Junkyard and check out the post I created about whitening a Dreamcast without Retro Bright, you'll see, what the product is. Certainly, people in the UK will, and how to do it. And I've had some good. I've had some good feedback. A lot of people have been tweeting me and stuff and showing me pictures of their Sega Saturns that they've whitened and like Nintendo, Super Nintendos that they've whitened.
Yeah,
so
lovely.
I mean, it seems to be going down quite well. Whether or not there's going to be a side effect in the future where your Dreamcast sort of turns black and then just turns into a pool of goo, I don't know. But
yeah, you should put a disclaimer on the article. We
take no responsibility for what happens if you put this stuff on your Dreamcast. Yeah. But I mean, short-term results, at least for me, have been pretty outstanding, and I'm quite prepared to say that I've done it to all of my Dreamcasts, and they all look amazing. Like I say again, whether they all go orange in the future, I don't know, but so far, so good.
I'm interested to know if you can use it on. I mean, I know the colours don't exactly match, but like SNES carts and the SNES consoles, they're awful for yellowing, aren't they? And I was wondering if it would do the same job.
Yeah, basically. I mean, well, in the initial video I watched of Adam Korolix, he actually did it on a Super Nintendo. So
really?
That's how I got the idea to do it for my Dreamcasts. But I think it would work on any type of grey plastic that is prone to yellowing. Anything basically with bromine in the mix.
So it doesn't change because like the Saturn isn't like blonde, so it doesn't change the colour of the
Japanese. I've got a couple of Japanese Saturns. They're white.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
I
mean, even like the grey Saturn that I've got, the first, I think it's a Mark One. It doesn't look yellow, but you can kind of see that the colour has changed slightly over the years. So I'm considering doing it to that as well. But I think what I'll do is I'll wait and see what happens to the Dreamcasts, and just leave them for a few months and see if they stay white or go an even deeper shade of orange. Anyway, so yeah, that's
cool.
That's the subject of the whitening of the Dreamcasts.
Okay, so next we'd like to talk about the Dream Passport 3's hidden emulator. There's a Mega Drive emulator and a PC Engine.
That's correct.
That right?
Yeah. Basically, if you Rob, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm wary of people getting sick of my voice on this podcast. So, basically, Dream Passport is the Japanese version of Dream Key. It's the disc that you put in your Dreamcast to access the web functions. What was the one in America called, Caleb?
He's fallen asleep.
I just have TurboGrafx 16.
Oh, right.
Because of the whole PC engine thing. I mean, that's all I'm thinking right now. TurboGrafx 16. That's all I'm thinking about, sorry.
What was the disc called in the US that you put into your Dreamcast to go online? Is it SegaNet or something like that?
I have like 3 of them. I don't know. I know it's not Passport.
So yeah, basically, Dream Passport 3, when it was still contemporary, there was a function within the web browser where you could connect to a server and download ROMs and then play them on your Dreamcast, like Mega Drive and PC Engine or TurboGrafx 16 ROMs. Through a bit of sort of really clever reverse engineering. This isn't like new news, by the way. This is only new news to people who've never heard of it before. Is that Sega included an emulator on the disc, and there's a little bit of confusion whether or not the emulator on the Dream Passport disc is a completely different one to what was used in the Sega Smash Pack emulator or not. Now, I don't know because I'm not knowledgeable enough, but there are about 40 ROMs actually included on the Dream Passport 3 disc as well.
Oh, I didn't realise that. I thought it was just the emulator. I thought the whole point was that it was like online, you connect online, you've got the emulator on the disc, and then look through the power of this awesome internet, you can then download the ROMs.
The issue was that there would be no place to download the ROMs to. It would just be kind of, it'd have to be on the disc.
Yeah, I think, and again, there's not a lot of information on the internet other than what you can find on forums, and a lot of the information does conflict. But as far as I can tell, there was an emulator on the disc, and also on some versions, there was also up to 40 ROMs. And what you were meant to do back in the day when it was contemporary was like dial up to the internet and then go onto a particular server, and then you could buy ROMs to play, and then using the emulator on the disc, play Mega Drive games. Obviously only available in Japan because they get all the good stuff and we get nothing.
We got Sega Swirl on the and it was called the web browser disc. That's why I couldn't remember it, because it was literally just called Web Browser 2.0. But yeah, we got Sega Swirl.
It's interesting actually that you got Sega Swirl as part of the web browser disc, because we got it as a part of the Dream On demo discs. The official Sega Dreamcast magazine gave away Sega Swirl. I can't remember exactly which volume it was, but yeah, that was it was like a big thing. Free game, free full game, and then you played it. And it was Sega Swirl, which was basically just like a rip-off of columns. So you had to like different Sega Dreamcast swirls that come down from the top, and you'd have to like match them up into a line or something.
So this was only available on the Dream Passport 3, the Japanese version.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so,
right, okay.
So the key would be, I suppose, the problem is validating this, because you have to you need to, obviously it's Japanese only. Is there any way that you can differentiate between the Dream Passport 3 with the ROMs and without the ROMs?
Yeah, I think basically what it is there's two different versions of Dream Passport 3. There's the one that actually comes in the box with certain models of the Dreamcast, Japanese Dreamcast, which has like a blue front cover on it, and it's it's spelled CH and then an at sign and then a B, so Chab. Chab. I don't know how you pronounce it. But there's also another version of the Dream Passport 3 which has got the same artwork on the front of the cover as the Dream Eye, the like felt cutouts.
Oh, the felt characters. I know what you mean.
Yeah. I'm looking at it.
It's the one with the felt characters on it that's got the emulator on it and all the ROMs. The one I've got has not got the emulators or the ROMs on it. It's literally just got some really weird artwork.
So I'm looking at this one that's on eBay now. It's available for an English buy. If I buy that and run it on my Dreamcast using the boot disc, will that work?
Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. And then on that disc is an emulator and ROMs.
Yes, I don't think it's as simple as basically putting it into your Dreamcast and then finding the right menu. It's actually hidden within the sort of the code on the disc. And if you look at things like ISOZone and a couple of other forums, you will find there are people who are, very clever people who have taken the files from the disc and then arranged it in a certain way that it becomes a self-boot that you can actually put into a Dreamcast. You can download, put it into a Dreamcast, and it comes up as an emulator with these games. And from the information that I can see online, this emulator on this disc is actually a superior version of the one that is actually on the Sega Smash Pack disc.
Why is it superior?
I don't know. It's just from the comments and the people who've actually played it and tried it that a lot of the things that are an issue with the Smash Pack one, such as like slowdown on certain games or the sound not being exactly perfect, on this particular version of the emulator, it's amazing and everything's as you would expect on an actual Mega Drive Genesis. So yeah, it's an interesting subject.
It is, and just to confirm, you did say that somebody has ripped out the data on ISOZone.
It's on ISOZone, yeah, I believe so. Yeah, if you search Google for Dream Passport 3 Genesis emulator or something like that, eventually, if you go far enough down the rabbit hole, you'll find a file on like MediaFire or one of those other file sharing sites. Don't know about the legalities of it, but this is the internet of today. I'm sure the FBI won't be smashing your door down because you've downloaded a Dreamcast emulator. Although, if you do, then we hold no responsibility for that.
What I suggest is when you insert that burnt disc onto your Dreamcast, you have a Beretta next to your head, just in case the door gets kicked in, because then you can. In fact, no. Get the Dreamcast with the disc in, put the Dreamcast next to your head, and then have the gun the other side of the Dreamcast, so you can take both the Dreamcast, the disc, and you yourself out.
And then all evidence is gone.
All the evidence is gone, and all the pain is gone.
Oh, brilliant! So yeah, that's the Dream Passport 3 emulator disc, and apparently there's also as Caleb mentioned, the TurboGrafx stroke PC Engine emulator on there as well. So I don't believe anyone's actually got that off the disc yet, and it's not actually something that anybody's working on. So it's a dormant project. Anyone listening to this wants to get involved, then please do, and give us a credit in the in the boot screen when you do it. Cheers. Cool.
Lovely.
Okay, shall we move on, gents?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
why not?
Again, I am very much aware that I'm taking up a lot of the airwaves, so I apologise for that. But the next subject is something that is a subject that I've been looking into on a more like a personal level because I find it quite interesting. And I'm sure you guys will have an opinion as well. And obviously people listening, once I start talking about it, if you know anything about this and can give us any more information, then please do get in touch. But the subject is this. Russia, okay, is a massive country, part of Europe, but didn't actually receive, as far as I know, an official launch of the Dreamcast. And by looking at various forums online, such as SWAT DC, which is a predominantly Russian forum, and also Assembler Games, I've kind of discerned that it never got the Dreamcast officially, and the market was completely swamped with bootleg games, which were produced by an outfit called Vector or Becktop, depending on how you want to pronounce their name. I think it's a fascinating subject that in a time like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was this massive unregulated market in Russia where all of these games were being produced and they were being hacked and having Russian language put into them. Even games like Densha Digo, the Japanese train simulator, was sort of reverse engineered and then translated into Russian and put out as a Russian official release. All these games they look like official releases. They've got proper covers, booklets, it's such a grey area and there's so little information out there. I just want someone to come forward and maybe be able to explain the scene in that part of the world.
Well, you can just imagine at that time, obviously Russia didn't get released. I mean, Sega is a huge company all over the world. Now, I just imagine Russia going, why aren't we getting this? How are we going to get this? I mean, I'll go back to what I said before the podcast started. Back in the late 90s, I went to Corfu, and there's no copyright laws at all anywhere. Whether you go east in Europe, the less and less stringent they are. It's really weird. You can walk into a bar and they're showing the latest movies on copy discs, and you're watching them. It's really cool. But
I mean, I recently went to Turkey, and it's the same in Turkey. There doesn't seem to be any copyright laws or anything at all. The thing that makes this whole situation seem strange to me is that in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the Dreamcast launched, why Sega ignored a country as big as Russia as an income source is just bizarre.
I don't know. I mean, back in them days, Russia, obviously known as one of the superpowers, you don't know the politics, do you? Look what Russia did to, what's his name, Tetris, Pajanov, is it?
Yeah, the Tetris guy, yeah.
They took him, they stole the rights to his game.
With Pajanov, the problem, the issue with Tetris was that he created the game, the program, on computers that were owned by the Russian government, and that's why they said, actually, wait a minute, you've created this with our hardware, so basically we own it. But with the Sega thing is the fact that it's an outside force. There is a massive community now, as there is in a lot of other countries, around the Dreamcast. I'm keen to know what it must have been like back in 99, 2000, when they must have seen the rest of the world getting this new console from Sega, but then not being able to get it themselves, other than through, slightly maybe nefarious ways. And seeing the games, hack versions.
I think the fact that there is such, you've seen on the internet, I think the fact that there were so many of these bootlegs released, I think it proves that the market was there. But when you don't have an official market in anything, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, it doesn't have to be, it can be anything really. If there's no official market, people will find a way, and it'll become a black market, an underground market. And this is clearly what this was. I don't know how mercenary Vector or Becktop were if they went, Dreamcast is not officially being bought here. Hey lads, this would be a good way for us to make some money, basically. Or if it was more sort of indie-led and it was more sort of a people's movement that we want these Dreamcast things, it's almost impossible to get them imported, so we need them produced in the country, essentially, which is why you got Densha Go coming over and being of all the games to translate. I don't know why they translated
it's translated as Runaway Train, which it clearly isn't. It's just basically a train simulator.
Those those games are not runaway trains. I've played them. You have to be incredibly strict. You've got to follow all the rules. You've got to go at the right time. You've got to stop at the right time. You've got to brake at the right time. There's just like it is in Japan, you've got very small windows to get to the next station. It's not some exciting
it's not like
thrill ride.
the film Runaway Train, in Siberia, like smashing through the Arctic tundra. It's literally driving from station to station on the Tokyo subway.
So the question is then, I mean, if this Vectop or whatever they're called, they're making these games and translated them. What are they being played on? Are they being played on Dreamcast? Or are they
they're basically from what I can tell, they are self-boot copies that can be played on any Dreamcast. If you do if you do a search on Google for Russian Dreamcast games, you will invariably bring up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a hodgepodge. You've got games that have got they're predominantly from Vectop or Vector, and they've all got the same kind of like English, but like in Russian, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what I'm not understanding, I'm sorry to bring it up, but obviously they've got these games and they're making these games, but what systems are they playing on?
They'll be import Dreamcasts. It's
right, yeah, okay.
I imagine most of the time they were probably just language translations, unofficially done. Just ripping it, because that's not new. I mean, people used to do like on SNES cards, like do Japanese to English translations.
Yeah, like Earthbound and Mother and things like that, wasn't it? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, unofficial, and this just seems to be that, but on a much bigger scale.
I don't think there was any difficulty, from what I can tell, in actually getting PAL Dreamcasts. Because obviously it is still part of Europe, and it's not that difficult to get a PAL Dream. Somebody on the forum that I asked this initial question on, Assembler Games, who is, I believe, Russian, sent me a load of pictures of like his Dreamcasts, and he's got a lot of like PAL Dreamcasts. So I don't think it was the issue of getting the hardware; it was the software that was the problem, and it was the fact that this outfit Vector stepped in and started releasing these hybrid games that is just, I find it quite strange.
So it looks like the consoles they could get hold of, just the games was a bit of a problem. Yeah, what's the point in having a
Even though there was no official sort of presence from Sega in Russia at the time, there's a whole scene of like magazines, and like action replay type devices that were created for the Dreamcast, which are in no way or for any stretch of the imagination even slightly official or even remotely related to Sega, but they've got VMUs and they've got action replay type devices. It's just, I find it incredible this whole massive underground community exists, and yet the whole rest of the official Dreamcast community doesn't really know much about it. It's kind of like a shadow world of the Dreamcast, and that's why I'm so interested. Do you know what I mean? It's, without trying to sound offensive, I mean, if anyone who's listening to this is in Russia and would like to chip in and tell us what we don't know, please do.
Shed some light on it.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I think we've chatted long enough about that. Guys, are there any other subjects that anybody wants to broach on at this juncture?
Actually, I wanted to ask real quick, like, what programs do you guys use to burn like homebrews and stuff? Because back in the day, I used to do it a lot, so I knew how to do everything, and now I'm just kind of...
I use image burn, but for the stuff that I've burnt on Dreamcast, which come from the ISO zone, there's a group called Revive DC who do fabulous work, basically. They just rip stuff down from GD-ROMs, which often obviously had more data on than a CD could handle, and they basically make it big enough for a CD to take, so you can then burn it on CD. And I use image burn, which is just literally like, it's so straightforward you can't get it wrong. You stick a disc in, you get the image from the ISO zone, and you just burn, and it does it. And it's pretty. I've never had anything fail on me, actually.
The one thing I've used quite a lot is a thing called Boot Dreams. I think it's called Boot Dreams. I use a Mac.
Boot Dreams, yes, that's to use too.
I use a Mac predominantly, so a lot of the things I've tried to burn on the Mac don't work on a Dreamcast, but my girlfriend does have a Windows PC, so I've used that on occasion. But to be honest, I don't really burn anything. I because I own a SD card reader, I just put a lot of the stuff that I want to play onto the SD card, put it in the reader, and then use Dreamshell to run it that way. So
yeah.
What about you guys? Anything at all?
No, but I will have to have a look into doing it once I can get a computer that's faster than the coffee machine at work. Then I might actually think about doing it.
I think the only other piece of advice I would do is to I mean, CDs are pretty cheap now, so
Yeah.
I would always go, and this is every time I burnt anything, I'd always go for a high, a verbatim or something like that, a high caliber CD, because I think that helps minimise failure. It's empirically that's helped.
So not Tesco's own brand like value CDRs.
Yeah.
Although
Nothing from the pound shop then.
The one last thing I will say though with those burns, that obviously do not expect the same speed performance from a GD-Rom. They'll be slower.
Do some homework.
All right, guys. I think that's enough from us.
Yeah.
Before we go, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. The first one is that we are still running the competition to win a Dreamcast collection vinyl, given to us kindly by Sega Europe. Yeah, we've got quite a few entries. We need more though, so you can check out the Facebook page or the main site. And basically, what we want to do, rather than just asking people to do a retweet or share this post, we wanted to hear people's stories about the Dreamcast and what the Dreamcast means to you. From your past or from the present, even.
Now, what we do want, folks, is you can do it any way you want. You can do it in you can create a picture. You can write an essay, you can do a video. Please, just really anything. And these prices are worthwhile because there are not many about.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason we've done it this way is because we just want to get people to be creative. Like I said, rather than just like hitting the retweet button, because anyone can do that.
Exactly.
We want to hear your stories because we want to be involved with the Dreamcast community at large. You know what I mean? That's what we aim to do.
That's one of the best things about the Dreamcast compared to almost any other retro console. The community is fabulous, and so we want to get involved.
I mean, the amount of people I chat to on a daily basis on the Facebook page, it's just incredible. I'm learning stuff every day just through other people's knowledge and the way we share stuff. And the group Dreamcast Online, it's a great group for people who want to maybe get into the console, but also people who are maybe seasoned collectors. There's loads online. So
now I've came to the Dreamcast quite late in my collecting life and playing days, and I'm learning things by the minute. Just being on this podcast, I'm learning things. So
as I say, get on the site, get on the Facebook page, submit your entries to admin@thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. That's our email address.
Yeah, and be creative.
Exactly, yeah. Also, if you're listening to this on iTunes, please leave us a review because that's how we get further up in the charts and get more recognition. Also, if you've not got an iPad or an iPod or a Mac, you can also listen to us now on Stitcher, which is something that I didn't even know about until last week and submitted the podcast to. But apparently it's quite a big thing if you're on Android or PC. Also, you can follow us all on various social media sites. We're all on Twitter. Rob, you're on Twitter at
Nicholas J.
And Gaz, you're on Twitter at
Lost Ruin. It's all one word.
Caleb, you are actually on Twitter at
my name.
Yes, it's your full name. I'm on Twitter at Tom Lee C, and also we have at Sega Junkyard. That's the official Dreamcast Junkyard Twitter account that we very rarely check. So if you tweet at us and we don't get back to you for roughly a week, that's why.
Yeah, just tweet one of the other ones and just complain. Yeah.
And as obviously you can get us at www.thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk and facebook.com/thedreamcastjunkyard, and we also have a group. And I think that will do it for this week. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye for now, folks.
Bye.
Please stop this disc now.